Guys, welcome to the first of the month MarketWebs webinar. We'd like to do these every beginning of the month because we do have a whole set of new value areas. So it is myself as well as WebBeGol who created the MarketWebs indicator and something that he's been developing and redeveloping and adding new enhancements as we go along on TradingView over time. And we actually have some new enhancements that we put out recently, so we can get into that in tonight's webinar. But Webb, how you doing? How's the first of the month going for you?
Doing well, doing well. Yeah, today turned out to be a really green day. Started pre-market looking like it was going to be a little rough, but I don't know about you, but everything in my portfolio was green by the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, we got the kind of the first of the month flows, I think, today. Typically that's just where I've seen historically where sometimes like pensions or, bigger funds are basically allocating money for the first of the month. It's like an old school type thing, by the way, of like, hey, new money being put to work, like mutual funds used to do a lot of that kind of thing. And what's been kind of interesting is sometimes when you think that's going to happen, hence the last couple months, the first of the month has not been very good.
Yeah.
If you go back to July, or excuse me, August 1st, the end of July and August 1st was a big down day, and then we snapped right back. And that was the same thing that kind of happened too in the beginning of September. So we do have, and so this month coming in different and more traditional, I think, to the first of the month type price action that you normally see. Yes, a lot of things were strong today. The breadth was strong for a change. What did RSP? RSP finished in the positive, but to your point, we started down on the day, and I was wondering if we were going to get one of those days like we've seen the last 2 months, but not so much. I mean, buyers came right in, and once again, growth stocks, really some pockets of strength, which we're going to go over. But I just want to ask Webb too, while he's on this. So we've got a new value area in anything, but we've got SPY up first because we kind of just start with the overall market first. But we've got new value areas for the month of October. Can you give us just a little explanation about what the value area for the month shows, and just explanation around that?
For sure, for sure. So the value areas, the market webs being really centered around value areas, and the value areas are based off of what we call auction market theory, right? So what the value area is telling you is that this was 70% of all the volume that took place in the month of September happened in this range. And I can't read. Can you read those numbers for me, the top and the bottom of value?
Yes. Yeah. You'll have to show me how to increase the fonts. As my age goes up, I need bigger font. Five. I think it's. I'm sorry. Six. Sorry, and I've got my mouse over 667.24. That's the top of the value area, which is basically we did get above that. By the way,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
rallied right through that, and the low is 650.49.
Great, great. So what that's saying is that that's the range where 70% of the volume took place, right, of the activity. So we use that as reference when we're going to trade the month of October to really know, are we above what we considered the right price for September? Are we below it, or are we in the range, right? So if we close today above it, which means that we're really strong and we're looking to continue to move the value of the overall market higher if we can stay above it. If we get inside of it, we're going to be in the range, and the market knows that range, right? So the bottom of value is going to act as a good support, with top of value being resistance. But again, we're above it right now. So you can look at the top of value as support as we try to stay above and create a new value for the market. That's generally how we take a look at these value areas. I'm sure more details will come out as we look at more charts.
Yeah, and just to expand on this, so you were saying 70%, and that's of course of the previous period, which was
Correct.
September,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
So yeah, it's kind of weird. Like I, for simplistic reasons, I wish that we kind of started the new month on Monday, because then we would have a new value area for the month, new value area for the week. But when you look at also the value area for the week, which I think, this was kind of the barrier even before that we got the value area for the new month. But also, like, we kind of tagged this a couple times this week, which was, this is the top of value for the week, which again, same thing, 70% of that activity from the previous week. And again, that will act as resistance. And notice how we kind of got there Monday and just didn't have the power to get through it. And then we tried that again yesterday. And again, just, while we're getting these nice little ranges, we're kind of, we stalled there yesterday, but today, not so much. So SPY made it through. Qs, I think, just looking, we're going to go backwards and look at the 1 hour value area first, but this we did get over. And then you could see how we also just by a small margin there, got above value, also for the,
Right.
on the daily chart, right?
Yep. Yep. And it's one of those things where, okay, we closed. It's so close to the top of value that you really need to wait and see where we open tomorrow, where we close tomorrow. I like to give it at least one day, another bar to confirm, are we going to be above it, or are we going to reject and get back into value?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, sometimes I kind of just like throw out days in terms of, if something is like, if it's a quadruple witching day or something like that, or sometimes like the first of the month, it just was so strong today. It just didn't feel like this market was going to sell off. And
Yeah.
it just felt like that new money was being put to work today. Hence that just relentless bid, like all day today, going on. And I think, yeah, for the most part, yeah, I mean, Qs and S&P just continue to kind of go higher. IWM was a little bit different today, and that's kind of like, I feel like IWM has been it seems to be like the oddball a little bit. It just kind of does its own thing. Here is the 5 minute for IWM, just different. It did seem that there was buying today, but it just wasn't relentless. Like, here's the Qs on the 5 minute, where you could just see right
Right.
from like where the algos basically turn on. Like, you hear a lot about the VWAP algorithm. The VWAP algorithm, sorry, you hear a lot about VWAP being used as a trading indicator, which uses a very similar concept of volume at price. But I associate VWAP with how I used to trade when I used to trade institutionally. Like, if somebody just wanted to execute an order very easily and like spread an order over the day, they would stick it in a VWAP algorithm. Now, that VWAP algorithm doesn't really start moving, it kind of doesn't trade a lot in the first 5 or 10 minutes. Once you get to 9:45, then that VWAP algorithm kind of kicks on. And you could see that little indecision that we had in the first 15 minutes of the day. And then there you go. Like, we started, you started to ramp. So I'm not saying all orders were executed that way, but it's one of the most widely used algorithms on Wall Street to kind of just execute an order if you don't really have any edge and you're not picking spots,
Right.
right? You're not doing any major block trading. You're just trading through that VWAP, because that kind of just looks for where historic volume is.
Right.
So hence that's what kind of that, and again, SPY was very similar for the day. So just to kind of break this down for the day, and then IWM, just to kind of go through and just kind of close the loop here. This is where this is. So this is not outside the value area for the month quite yet. But I have to say, I kind of like this little, move, into the 20-day moving average, and we're just kind of following that for now. So level to watch there is 242.96.
Let's do it.
Just to look at the micro caps too. I know that you did not have your close eye on the market today, correct?
I did not. I've got
All
a lot
right.
of things going on right now.
Fair enough. I'm going to give you a couple of things that I thought were just pretty exceptional for the day. I'll talk about healthcare stocks in just a minute, because I think they were saying, Bloomberg was saying something like healthcare stocks had the biggest 2-day rally since 2008. I think they were using a pharmaceutical index for that. But
True.
I said this in my video yesterday. I was like, I'm not sure we've seen I can't remember when we've seen such a big day in XLV. I think it was up 2.7% yesterday. But before we get to that, what was one of the best performers today was clean energy. Clean energy, contrary to probably what I heard about some projects being canceled in clean energy, but it's funny how these things kind of go sometimes to the opposite of what conventional wisdom is,
Right.
right? Sometimes people think, oh, you got to pile into energy stocks because this administration is pro traditional energy like oil and gas. But meanwhile, look at what clean energy stocks are doing.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do a lot with probably the AI trade that's going on. But I
Right.
mean, this was a heck of a move. This was up 5.7% today. Um, and a lot of these stocks in this, I've also been watching this ETF too, which is Global Clean Energy, which is also like from a weekly standpoint. I don't know, Webb. What do you think? Are these names just starting to get going? You'll note
Sure. Yeah.
that the value area for the year marked that this was going to be a high volatility period.
Right.
Do you want to explain that just a little bit?
Sure.
How we came up with that? It's a very nice. I know that some people like to put some type of like volatility type squeeze uh, indicator, and they generally do that like as a study on the bottom of their screen. The valuers actually do that for you. But
Yeah.
go ahead. I want to hear the real explanation than me making up something for you.
So as we talked about before, right? It's 70% of the previous period. So when we're looking at a daily chart, we're looking at the different months. So this is going to be October versus September. Um, what we do is calculate, is the value area specifically narrower than usual historically, right? And when it is, it indicates that the volatility has come down in the stock, and a lot of the volume has been centered around a single or a very tight range, right? And any coiling that you might look at, from a squeeze indicator to just looking at candlesticks to like a flag pattern or anything where the volatility really shrinks, it tends to, you can think of it like a spring coiling, right? Like, and eventually when it breaks one way or the other, there's going to be likely high volatility because everyone's gotten very used to a specific price. Like when you know the price of a stock without having to look at a chart, it gets a bit boring. But as soon as it starts moving, now it's interesting, and suddenly money comes flowing in or flowing out on if it's going down. So just like any kind of squeeze indicator, the market webs are also identifying that when the value area is particularly narrow, and that's likely going to lead to high volatility. It's not directionally biased. It could go either way, but in this case, you can expect high volatility apparently to the upside.
Gotcha. Okay. And yeah,
Oh,
and this is the weeklies.
yeah, I just realized that I
Yeah.
misspoke there. So we're
That's
looking
okay.
at a weekly candlestick, which means that we're looking at this year versus previous year versus last year. So last year's price was very coiled. You can see it in the candlesticks, how we just stayed in that range for most of the year. So now that we're getting some movement this year, we can expect some high volatility, probably at least to that VPOC that's up there.
Gotcha. Yes, I gather that you must have had a busy day because usually you're doing the correcting of me, and hence I was like, oh, whenever if Webb makes a mistake, I was like, oh, it's yearly. But yeah, absolutely, I did switch the chart to the weekly time frame. I just wanted to go over like a couple of the movers from the day in this, and we can kind of just break down a couple things. Now, LAC had this second reaction to the administration taking a stake, which was kind of interesting. This was a trade, by the way, that I had put out a I had put out a big trade idea earlier. Early in the year, saying like, "Hey, rare earths, lithium, like this could be a candidate for a government stake." Hey, we got it.
Mhm.
Speaking of really tight price action on the weekly chart, this was basically it, and
Right.
and I was in this a little bit too early. Back in here, and as we see sometimes when a name is like basing like this, it's going to stop and start a few times, like stop here, start here, not ready yet, comes back in, starts here, you get all excited. And I think this is when I was in the stock. And then it kind of came back and shook everybody out one more time, and then got going. So very interesting. Another name that's catching some interest from the administration, and they did announce the 5% stake and a move higher. A few other names like this stock had a delayed reaction. I'm just gonna kind of go on the weekly chart first,
Yeah.
just to see how these things were kind of setting up, and it kind of just gives the bigger picture here first. But QS is another one. I've traded this one a couple times this year. Very interesting is that it didn't. It had the story out yesterday that they were collaborating with Corning, which is one of the hottest groups right now. The optical names, but it had the news yesterday, and for whatever reason it was kind of just stuck in the mud yesterday, and there it goes, and it takes out the previous highs. It is now challenging those highs from all the way back in July. Any thoughts on this one, or have you traded this one before?
I've traded this a while ago, but that was, struggling back before it started taking off. It certainly looks good on that weekly chart with the VPOCs up ahead, up at 2416 for the yearly, and of course, high volatility is expected for the year as well in the name. So we're certainly seeing that. Yeah, looks good.
Gotcha. Okay, next one, and we'll keep the symbols easy. Two-letter symbols. BE is another one that has just been absolutely on fire.
Oh my
The
gosh.
the check back to the 20-day moving average. By the way, this was one of my featured stocks on Sunday. I said this was one of my favorite setups. So it kind of it took a little bit of patience because it dropped right down to the 20-day moving average. I
Right.
think this was the day that it got broker downgrade, and it kind of just sat here a couple days. Weren't sure if it was going to really kind of move off the 20-day moving average. And then it really got going yesterday. There was a story on it yesterday. It actually started down on the day. So it gave you a little bit of a chance to, I don't want to say buy the dip because it was so strong yesterday, but I think some of these either like alternative power generation names are just really high in demand right now. So whether you call them clean energy or power generation or um, that
Certainly
is,
renewables.
yeah,
Like I
renewables.
think
Yeah.
that's the key to the narrative, right? Is you need energy that can be renewed, so you're not constantly paying for consumables, right? Yeah, it makes sense in the AI space.
Yeah. So look at how this one opened for the month, by the way. It did just, the way that it closed yesterday, it actually started the month above value, and there's your time. I mean, we're splitting hairs here a little bit, but look at the little check back to the top of the value
Yeah,
area. So
yeah.
so that's your level to trade against for the month. 82.31. I kind of think that this stock is off to 100. It's been a freight train the last 2 days,
Yeah.
and I don't know if anything, unless some type of bearish note comes out on the stock. I think this is set for breaking to $100 at this point. We're getting pretty close at 88.
Yeah, there's a Venom up at 113.58. So those are just kind of guide marks for extension. We're in new territory, so there's not a VPOC up ahead. We've never
No,
been this high.
that's it. And I got this question the other day. The VPOCs, which we'll talk about them once we kind of have one in the picture,
Yeah,
but they're more for a version point of control. VPOC is created when there's a lot of high volume at a particular area that the market hasn't returned to.
right.
So, for example, like this one all the way back in here, you could see, I think that was the last one that happened on the daily chart. But now VPOCs are not going to help you. Now you're into breakout territory, which to me is a better situation to be in because you have no resistance ahead. I know that scares some folks because they want something to say, hey, where can I take a target or where can I take my
Sure,
profits?
sure.
This is just simple. This is just, I don't want to say simple trading, but having a trailing stop and understanding that with a trailing stop, you're not going to get the absolute highs. But if a name is going to continue to trend like this, you're going to make some good money. And then, of course, you ratchet up that trailing stop to where you think it's comfortable. You could also use a moving average, but at this point, it's getting even away just in a couple days where it was at the 5-day moving average. Probably isn't going to help you because that'll be too far down.
Right. Of
I
course, you
want
can
to.
use the tighter time frames as well. You can use the weekly value area or maybe the daily, although that's probably too tight if you're worried about getting stopped out. But weakness on the weekly could tell you, okay, take a target here and maybe reload when it pulls back a little bit, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. I want to bring up a stock that, again, this is kind of fun because I know that you haven't been looking at
Oh, you're going to
charts
quiz me.
charts all day. This is a stock uh, of the. I'm trying to think of a funny way to state this. It's like Christmas past. This is a stock of like 2021 that you haven't heard too much about because it's a $2 stock. And I want to show you the weekly chart in this first because this really got going. This is actually, we run a contest every month at Tribeca Trade Group, and the winner gets a free month off off their membership for the trading room. If I win, I get to take a month off. So that's the rules. I did make up the rules, but in any event, this is my pick for the month, and we start we strike these off the open, so there's no like overnight moves, and whoever
Right.
performs the best. But I decided the rule the threshold that I think that we have for the rule is $1.50. So it did just get above that, but here we go. Plug Power, a stock that was once 60, 70 bucks in
Wow.
2021. So I told you, ghost of 2021 here,
Yeah.
65 bucks. I won't give the absolute high. Well, the absolute high was about 74. I don't know much about, whether or not what their business prospects are, other than they were in the news today. So, $2 stock catches, and stock was up 25% today. But I see some resistance coming into the play. We've got a bullish 80% rule.
Yep.
Would you like to explain the bullish 80% rule?
Absolutely. So again, market webs are based off of the auction market theory, which has been around since like the late 80s, mid 90s, usually traded in the futures pits. Um, the 80% rule came from those guys. And the 80% rule says that if you've been trading outside of value for a significant amount of time and you haven't fully explored the value area, sorry for my cat there.
Was that a cow?
My cat. Yeah, I don't
Oh,
have a
okay.
cow in New York. That would be
Okay, gotcha.
special.
It sounded like a moo. Okay.
So to start over, when you've been trading outside of value, like on this chart, we've been trading below value for much of the year. And then we break into value. If we haven't already explored the entirety from top to bottom of the value area, then we trigger what we call the 80% rule. There's an 80% chance that we're going to the other side of value, and then we're likely to see resistance. So your monthly contest chances, it's going a little too fast for you, bud. Like we might get through the 80% rule tomorrow and then sell off. So you need to be a little careful there.
Well, I can also stop the contest.
Oh,
I have one stop for the, no, I'm just kidding. I can't stop the contest, even though I try to, but it is a month-long contest.
Right, great. But yeah, generally, I like to be in names that are in the 80% rule, especially on the weekly candle charts, but the yearly value area, because that's going to give you a lot of tailwind to the upside, at least until you reach the top of value.
Gotcha. So again, I just want to mention one other thing here. We did start the year inside value.
Right.
And because we trickled outside, now we're activated. If this just stayed inside value, because I had a good question about this earlier.
Yeah.
If you start in the period, in this case it's the year, inside value, there's no bullish or bearish 80% rule. You've actually got to break below or above here. So
Yeah.
so that's the and notice how this is a feature that Web has added, just like with the high volatility that we showed previously for what's been going on with the clean renewable energy stocks. You're also seeing the label here too, and it also, by the way, like changes the color automatically of the value area so that you can see it. It stands out. Same thing. It works on the bearish side too. If you start the period and you break below, the value area will actually turn pink, and it will highlight bearish 80% rule. So just a nice trading guide for you. And this gives you a sense, whereas we were looking at Bloom Energy breaking out to new highs and no resistance, this one definitely has some resistance, which is at 339. Notice that we're starting with the weekly chart first. You could also see when I flip over to the daily chart, you could see that same value area because I've got two value areas in here, and I've got one set to the previous period, which is kind of like a nifty little trick here that we've incorporated over the last year. So I can turn. So now when I turn that off, I'm just looking at the value area for the month. So we're using multiple time frame analysis here, but we're doing it on. You could actually set it up so that you could see multiple time frame value areas on the same damn screen, which is pretty cool. So when I click this back on, you could see that's that value area that we were looking at on the weekly chart. And I have the way that I have this to set is so that I've got the time frame and I've got this auto next higher. So we're looking at that next higher. Hence, it's still green. So we're above value for the month now, right? New value. This is the new value area for the month of October.
Yep.
So we're above there. We're in what's it called?
Price discovery.
Price discovery for the month, but not for the year.
Not for the year yet. We are inside of previous range for the year, but we have that 80% rule momentum, which just means that there's an 80% chance we're going to explore the entirety of last year's range, right? That's all it's really saying. But here, because we're on one directional, we know where it's going to go. 80% chance, right?
Gotcha.
But that's why when we get to the top, then that rule is kind of exhausted and you can expect some resistance, at least temporarily. Now, a very simple rule I tell people when people are like, well, with the MarketWebs, like, how do I read this? I don't want to learn another indicator. Totally get that. Don't get me wrong. It's very simple. If you're above the box, you're bullish. If you're inside the box, you're range bound. If you're below the box, you're bearish. Simple as that. So when you can do it on multiple time frames, as you were just highlighting, that's really, really helpful. So we have the 80% rule going on the year. As we've been saying, there's going to be some resistance when we reach the top, but we are above value for the month, right? So at the daily candlestick, we're bullish. At the yearly, we're range bound, but bullish because the 80% rule. But if we get above value for the year, now you're bullish on two time frames. Let alone, of course, you can go to the weekly and the daily and look kind of more granularly. But when you have the bullish setup on both for the month and for the year, that's really, really good tailwinds. It's a really good sign. It's time to be bullish. And then you have these VPOCs up above that are really good targets to take when you get into that configuration.
Yeah, and just from a trading standpoint, what I one of the reasons why I've traded with the value areas and the market webs for now it's a good number of years is it kind of just gives me a game plan of like, if I get into a trade, I know exactly where I'm thinking that the stock could go. Again, there's no 100% guarantee, but I know that there's going to be some resistance here at 339. Then the question, so for me, like, boom, that's take a target. And I got into a new trade. We can go over the new trade that I got in today and how I'm going to trade that name. But there is a good place to take a good chunk off, and then you can kind of watch to see what it does. And if it does get above this value rate, now you could set your stop just down and below, just inside that value area, and then you can kind of shoot for, hey, maybe this can begin to trend and retrace all the way up to $6. And I think that would kind of be interesting, and that would be a nice trade. But you're setting these parameters ahead of time, and once you kind of get used to this mindset, it becomes routine, so that you're kind of just taking out the emotion and the I hate to say it, but some of the excitement of trading, because you're saying, hey, you're just pre-planning what you're doing, right? And that's the same thing too. Like if you wanted to go long here, what I would do is set your stop right inside the value area for the month.
Exactly. Because if we break back into value, right, let's see what our audience has learned here. We're trading above value. We opened above value. We are above value. If we break into value, what's going to happen? 80% rule, but to the bearish side, right? So it's a good place to know where to place a stop as a price level. Like if we get into this area, I don't want to be in the name anymore to the bullish side. So you can just reduce or exit, etc. But like placing a stop inside of value is the right way to play it.
All right, you ready? You ready for the next stock? And this has been kind of this frustrated me to see this, because I was in this stock earlier this year, and this group has kind of been a bit frustrating. But look at the move in CSIQ today.
Oh my,
This was up, right? I know you're aware that I was in this one,
I was
uh,
too. I was right
but
there with you.
14% move. So I kind of just thought my thesis for like taking a shot at solar names. And by the way, this is also bullish 80% rule.
Yeah.
And so the way that you could kind of think about this is that's another 24% above. Maybe the stock is just starting to get going a little bit. Now it's kind of I think it kind of just put everybody to sleep. But my fundamental thesis was, okay, if some of these other areas of the market, we've seen obviously uranium go, and we've seen the whole nuclear trade and some others. So why not solar? And I think that we are in a bull market. Some things are starting to really kind of accelerate from low levels. And I have to say, I do like the solar group, but I think it's one of those areas where you kind of have to, watch your position size, because these things can really move quickly. But
Yeah.
I do like the whole setup here of getting above these moving averages, and you can kind of see something's different here. You could see that this is beginning to, really kind of move where I think this is the 50-day moving average really started to kind of, the slope in the 50-day moving average started to curl up.
Yep.
That's usually a good sign that the trend is starting to change.
And the 50 crossing above the 200-day, you got a golden cross. It's nice.
Oh yeah, the old golden cross. So yeah, similar to what we just looked at, plug. This is above the value area for the month, right? New
Yeah.
month, new value area, and inside value, and there's where this could go. Now, if you want to get more granular, let's see if we see anything on the 1 hour chart. Oh, look at that! We did take out a VPOC
There
today
it is. Yeah.
on the 1 hour. So this would be so for more like shorter term trading, shorter term swing trading. I do use the 1 hour chart quite a bit, and you will find some things like this. And CSIQ has had some trouble with these VPOCs previously. The one in here, we kind of hung around, we took this out, hung around, and then dropped. This one also we hung around, or we took this out, and then was more of an immediate drop. This last one, it just kind of stymied the price action a little bit. So if you want a new level to trade against, you could basically use this $15 level and kind of go from there and say, okay, well, forget about today's price action. It was a huge day. But if this thing is really going to move through that value area for the year, it's got to get back above that 15 level. So that's something that I would try. And I'm actually going to set an alert right now at 15, because I will try this again, even though I didn't have the patience to stay with it. I don't mind trying this again. So alert for me set at 15, and there we go.
Very nice. I think we could take this opportunity to talk about the VPOCs for a second too. This is a wonderful chart to kind of explain what we expect around them. So what the VPOC is as mentioned, right? It's going to be the specific price level within a value area that had the most action, the most shares traded during a period and stuff like that. So when it's still inside the value area, we call that the point of control. So we use it as a reference, but when we're trading the real-time value area, I don't really use it as a reference that much. But if we leave it behind, i.e. the market moves away from that level into the future, it leaves behind the point of control, and we call it a virgin point of control because it's kind of like untested, untouched, right? So these are just levels that maintain and stay as reference. And what we tend to see happen, and this is a great chart to demonstrate it, is that when price starts to be in price discovery mode, that means we're outside of value. We're above or below. We're in price discovery. And it starts drifting. It will remember these levels and be like, oh, yeah, this is a price I want to go to. It'll drift towards it like a magnet. It'll get pulled to that VPOC. But as soon as it gets there, more often than not, it will trigger a reversal of price or a pause of price. Sometimes we blow through it. It does happen. Not every VPOC is a perfect VPOC. But more often than not, you can expect that price will pause or revert from there. So it's a really, really good level to use as targets when you set up a trade. When you enter a trade, you set your stop and you set a target, right? VPOCs are wonderful for that. So it's just a good chart to demonstrate it. I'm sure we'll see some more as we look at more charts.
All right. Do we want any more clean energy, renewable, or do we want to move on to the to the next hot sector that we saw today.
I want to see the other sectors.
All right, here we go. So I'm going to start with this one because it did come upon an interesting level today. This is your XBI equally weighted biotech sector, and notice that this one just completed that bullish 80% rule today. So a heck of a move by biotech. Sorry.
No, you're good. Sorry, that was my computer. Sorry.
So okay. So we did see the bullish 80% rule complete today. That level's 101.54. This is XBI. This is the equally weighted ETF. And so rallied all the way up to resistance. We'll talk about the healthcare stocks too, which were really on the move today. But this is a nice. So how would I trade this going forward? Now, the main thing to do is to not say, geez, look at the lows and look at the move off the lows. I missed this trade, if you haven't been in biotech. What you want to concentrate on is on the road ahead. So first of all, weekly candle, and we still have, believe it or not, we still have 2 more days of the trading week. I kind of feel like this is a Thursday, but it's not a Thursday today. Tomorrow's not Friday. Sorry. But we still have 2 more days of price action before this candle completes. For today, it kind of stopped at that resistance, that major resistance level for the year. We'll see if we can get through that. So that's what I would be watching. And by the way, if this makes you feel any better, forgetting about where this has come from the lows, if you go back to last year, it's really the stock is just getting back to where exactly. Not stock, but where this ETF was last year. Exactly. So that's what I would be watching going forward. We can kind of just zoom out so you could see the overall pattern. But really over the last couple of years, while there's been definite levels to get involved in biotech, specifically these lows, but this has really not gone anywhere. So now you've had this big move from the lows. Now the heavy lifting has to come in place, and that would be right at the top of the value area.
Right.
And I'm just going to back this up to the daily chart too, so that you could see for biotech where this is. But again, you're going to see that value area that's from the weekly chart. And if I just want to hide this here, that's also going to tell you that just by the naked eye, you're going to see that there's some resistance in here too. So there are definitely more VPOCs up here if it wants to continue to trend. But I think you've got a very good guide. And let's say that this does close above that value area by the end of the week.
Yeah.
Now that what would become resistance now becomes what, Webb?
Support. Yeah, support. Exactly. Because now we're into that price discovery mode. We're above value. So now we're going to figure out what the new value is. I do like to look at as well, if you can scroll out or something, let's see a little more to the right of your screen. It was clear on the weekly candlesticks, but if we look at the developing value area, that's going to be for 2026. There it is.
Oh, there you go.
You can see the box there, right? And you can see where we are in relation to it. We're above it. So 70% of the volume that's already occurred this year, we're trading above it. So the sentiment right now is strong. Do I need a chart to tell you that? I don't know. We're at highs for the year, but it's still something worth paying attention to. So if we do get into that price discovery mode, I'm going to be watching that box on the far right of your screen is about the value area for 2026. That's still changing every day. That's going to look a bit different, especially every week. It's going to look a bit different, right? So you want to keep reference of that, and it's a good place to think about maybe having a stop in there, right? Because now you're really referencing what's going on this year and the price action and the sentiment of what price action is doing relative to what it has done this year to know where the strength is. So I like doing that. Kind of, I'll either use the value area that is relevant to this year, though the one that's highlighted in yellow right now, or I might look at the developing value area to kind of figure out where I want to place my stops.
I was just going to turn on the watermark. I think there was a question before. Yeah, so there you could see the symbol for these. But yeah, so very interesting that we already have this developing value area, even though we've got 3 more months of the year. So this will continue to develop as we progress through 2025. But yeah, I mean, this is it. We are in Q4. By the way, we do have a special. I'm just going to mention this. I'll mention this at the end. If you want to get involved and have this, we do have a 3 months for the uh, for the price of one. So
Yeah.
you can kind of get this for the end of the year, have this in your trading, as well as get access to our trading room, where if you have questions about using the MarketWebs, I'm there all day, every day. Unless, of course, I win that contest, which I'm banking on. But joking. But yeah, I'm there all day, every day. The trading room opens up. I mean, it's open 24 hours, but I start posting at about 7:15 in the morning, and we're there for questions. If there's something really technical, Webb is always lurking in the background, where where he can chime in on something more in depth. But it's a great special to kind of take advantage of, and we hope that you do that. So let's get to just a couple other. I just want to bring up some of the other ETFs just to see the move in XLV, because that was actually greater, and this is actually progressing through the value area. Now, this is a good point. There's no 80% rule on this value area
because we've already explored before coming back into it, which we did. I don't know, like what was that? August, July, something like that. Before coming back into it, we had already explored the value area from the top to bottom, because in the early of this year, we were actually above value. So then we had to traverse it to the other side, and now we're back into it. So really, we're just range bound at the moment until we can really kind of establish ourselves into an auction market.
Gotcha. Yeah, so your resistance coming here is 145.67. Anybody want to go? If there's any questions, you could post them, I believe, in this chat that we have in here.
Yeah.
If there's any healthcare names that you guys want to go over, we're happy to. I've noticed that there's been some really nice strength. I mean, look at the candle in AbbVie. By the way, very, very strong. That's just not normal. I think if I didn't mention this already, but I think this is the largest 2-day rally in pharma stocks since 2008. So this has been one heck of a move. And, I think it just goes to show you too, that when the administration is mentioning a stock or a group of stocks, they are really moving off of that. And we've seen this now several times, but that's a really nice move. I was actually looking at J&J today a little bit, and then we'll move to a different sector. But here's the daily chart. Again, like by the time I saw this is a nice break of the September value area.
Yep.
And is really kind of broken out from there. But I couldn't get involved, a little bit too extended for me.
Yep.
But notice as well that you've got on this high volatility expected.
Yep.
So again, that's acting pretty darn well for that. I do see some questions, some ticker symbols. Please always, when you're posting the tickers, if there's anything specific about the names, we did already cover BE, so you're going to have to just rewind. That was one of the first stocks that when we started to go over the clean energy renewable segment, we did cover BE and just how bullish that stock looks. CoreWeave, I'm long this stock. I did take some profits in this. This is so we've got some nice levels to watch here in CoreWeave. Right now, we're right at the top of the value area for the month. So again, new value area for the month. We've got this resistance that we're like bang up against, which is 136.96, I believe is the level there. So I did take some targets in this. I took some profits in this yesterday, but I am looking for my ultimate target to be 150, which is the VPOC up here.
Yeah, makes sense to me. It's one of those, because it's an IPO and it's young, the value areas are very helpful as everyone is still trying to figure out what the fundamentals look like. We haven't gone through a lot of earnings reports and stuff like that. So technicals are very helpful, and where price has been and what's the sentiment. And the sentiment, when I say that, I mean, like, are we above previous value or inside of range or below it, right? That's going to tell you, like, the market is overall bullish on this and going to keep going up. So as long as we're above value, we're in bullish territory.
Yeah. So, and notice that will give you the percentage change up there too, to get to 150. It's about 9%. So you can kind of weigh, if you're putting on a new trade, you can kind of weigh where that resistance is with the kind of risk to reward for the scenario. So yeah, I'm long. Again, I took some profits yesterday. That's the way kind of I've been trading, and it kind of gives me the flexibility that if it does sell off a little bit, it kind of checks back to this VPOC that was the last takeout. Sometimes we kind of stick around these VPOCs for a bit.
Yeah.
Then I will probably be looking to kind of add back a little bit. The next one that James asked for was Oklo. Oklo is kind of right in the middle of the value area well, not right in the middle, but it did open up
Fitting.
inside.
Yeah.
So we've got really nothing, no major like signal to kind of trade off of for Oklo, which is probably why, it's kind of it's hanging out for now. We're also going to look at more granular and look at the 1 hour value area, and you're going to see that there is some resistance just ahead. And I'm going to just turn off the value area for the months just so that you can see the value area for the week. Notice that we've had a couple problems with that resistance so far this week, which is coming in right around 119.60. We've had a couple announcements from Oklo this week, saying that like the same, which we just talked about, how like the government is saying that they want to use Oklo for a number of things, for nuclear projects. But for now, there must be a seller in there. But it's the valuers are telling you exactly where there's some resistance, which is at this 119 level. Anything you want to add on this one? Sorry, what?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, as far as how the value areas act as resistance, right? Like as we're trading below value and we're in an auction market to the downside, then as you get closer and closer to value, sellers can kind of find an advantage until we take value, until we're inside of it, right? But like it's a good price to sell at if you're in the bearish auction to be right at the bottom of value. So we tend to see those levels, the top and the bottom of value, acting as significant walls for price action, but all the more significant when price can overtake it.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah. And if you were long, this is kind of pretty close. But if you were long from down in here, right, you would be using that bottom of the value area to at least like take a target and then
Sure.
watch what it does. But yeah, I mean, this is this is what's known as a rejection, and it just may mean that there's a seller in the stock. And again, the valuers are doing a great job of telling you where there's some resistance. Next stock on James's list, and then we'll go to the next. But I love how you guys are putting some symbols in here. Palantir, this is definitely one that I'm watching. I'm just going to turn this back on because I think that there's a really good level to watch here. So we're kind of just right at that resistance. Webb, do you want to? Sorry, I'm going over all these. I feel I should give you a chance to answer. I'll give you get the next symbol. You get the next symbol. But Palantir, yes, I'm watching this 184.81. It was flirting with breaking higher, but that would be the get long level that I'm waiting and watching for.
Right.
And you could always kind of cheat a little bit, and you could say, hey, I'm going to kind of leg into the position a little bit here, so that because these stocks move fast. If this does break value, sometimes this could be off to the races. But that's the level that I would be looking for a closing bar above there. It's it's important. I think most of you know this, but just as we're looking at the daily chart here, but the closing print is always the most valuable thing. Sometimes you will see attempts to break higher, and then by the end of the day, it doesn't close. It doesn't make it. It doesn't close above there, and it just means the stock isn't ready yet. It's not ready to take that next leg higher. But I do the same thing on the 1 hour chart when I'm trading intraday. Sometimes I'll get involved in a position, and there's still about 30-40 minutes before the bar closes, and I'm looking at a break of value, and by the time that it closes, it doesn't break the value area. Right. And I'm like, geez, it's tough to wait 30 minutes, especially in this market, especially in the beginning of the day, where things will kind of just go off to the races. But there was one example of that happened to me earlier this week, and that was in Broadcom, where I was looking at the 1 hour bar looked great. About 30 minutes into the bar, by the time the bar closed, it didn't look so great. So just a reminder. All right, you got the next one up, which is AMBA.
Oh boy. Okay. This is a blind test. I haven't looked at this chart, so we're going to see what I have to say.
Is it this name being taken out, by the way, or no?
Oh, like a buyout or something?
Yeah, I thought that for some reason I thought that there was, but maybe I'm wrong.
Kind of rings a bell. So yeah, obviously we're in the bullish auction market for the year of trading above value. We went up and hit a few VPOCs up there. The most recent one was perfect tag and then sold off. So acting as we were talking about earlier. But now as we start October, we started inside of value and kind of at the bottom of value and are now breaking above it. High volatility is expected both for the year and for the month. So that's really good. I think if this thing can establish itself above value, then there's a real good chance it can continue higher. I don't know if there's more VPOCs up ahead of us or what. But one thing, I just reiterate what you were just talking about. I like to see what happens tomorrow before I jump into it, because you just even when it closes above value, just a hair, it can still reject tomorrow. It can still just turn right back around. So it's just kind of wait and see, keep your eyes on it, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and I mean that's a nice candle for the day. I mean it started the day lower, and you got a real nice green looking
Yep.
bar there. So you just need continuation. You're right at that pivot point, and just as Webb mentioned, like this is a great place, like back in here, to understand like, hey, this could be again. Whenever we get to one of these VPOCs, it becomes a battleground between overhead supply, so existing sellers, and new buyers, and it really depends on who's going to win, right? If the new buyers need to overwhelm, you kind of think of it like a battle, right? It's the new buyers have to overwhelm the sellers and kind of push them around a little bit. In this sense, the sellers won out here, and that VPOC marked the top, right where there was a lot of volume. So again, that's the beauty of this, is that like if you happen to be long this, or if you got into it, like if there was news this day, and I think this was what I was talking about, that there might be an acquisition going on here, or at least
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's rumors, maybe there isn't an actual one. I'll have to look to see, because I don't remember. But if there was rumors and like the stock is rallying and you get long, you know that there's going to be that there should be some resistance right around this 92.7 level. So now that this is taken out, maybe it does have a runway to kind of move above, since there's already a ton of volume, people taking profits
Right.
on that first initial move.
Right. And
Um,
that's why the VPOC doesn't carry forward, right? We've tagged it, and now it's no longer relevant for anything to the right side of it on the chart. So now really when we're looking, we're going to look for, is there another VPOC? I think I saw when you were scrolling, there might have been one a bit higher from where we are now. So that's going to be the next magnet. But that level that we've tagged on the chart now, no longer relevant.
Gotcha. Next one, and we can kind of do, since I'm long Rocket. I did get long Rocket the other day. I was trading this off of a support level, which was the value area for the month of September, where we kind of came in. All right, so I thought that that was a good entry point for Rocket. Uh, this check back to the top of the value area, we kind of sank in here for a day, and then we started to move. So it started to work a little bit. Then we had this reversal bar yesterday. It was announced that Zillow is going to be under investigation for,
Oh,
I think, some of their advertising practices, which also affects Rocket to some extent. And then today they closed the deal of Cooper, and so for now it's holding the support. It's not going anywhere, but I know that there's going to be some resistance at 2120,
yeah.
which is where we saw a lot of the consolidation. But I've been in the stock a couple times, and I haven't gotten too greedy. If we could break above this value area 2120, then there's a VPOC up here. But again, these VPOCs, you don't have to worry about them below or above until you're trading outside the value area.
Correct. Exactly. As you're inside the value, you're protected by that range. So if you said you're long already, so it's a stop below value. So as long as we stay inside of value, you're still good, and you're hoping for a break to the upside.
Now this thing's still selling off here in the after hours, but same thing, looking at the 1 hour value area, just like we were looking at, I forget what stock it was. I think it was Oklo, um, where that was having some difficulties with the bottom of the value area. This had some difficulties this week with the top of the value area.
Yeah.
This thing is just not ready to go up yet. Notice how much it's been hanging around this 2017 level, right? So here, even earlier, I guess this was today. where it tried to go higher, and notice that these, I mentioned, you should wait for the bar to close, because this bar looked like
Yeah.
it was definitely going higher, and then by the time the 1 hour bar closed, it closed right back inside value.
Yeah.
So it does not have the, so this is a not yet setup. Even though I'm already long and I'm trading it versus support, I may have to decide that this trade isn't going to work in the short term, considering that there are sellers in this. We'll see how it shakes out by tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be very much eyeing that VPOC down there as a bounce level.
And then a stock that gets a lot of attention on the interwebs, social media, this Open Door, which you could have, and I've been kind of going along with this, just saying, hey, it's a great way to be able to take targets with the value areas as this thing takes out a VPOC. I
Yep.
noticed that I said on this one, I said on social media, I said, hey, if it gets to $7, you could take a target there. And then if it retreats back to like the top of the value area and holds, you can kind of re-add. And that these are big moves. Like, these are big percentage moves. This is $7. This is all the way down at 540. So I had said, like, hey, take a target here if you're long this name, and then you have the flexibility, you lock some profits in, and you could re-add here. And then this had this huge day, took out 2 VPOCs in one day, and then since then it's kind of stalled from there. So
Right.
again, a lot of overhead supply with these names, right? These names have been in a downtrend for a while. So, you have to realize that there's going to be these overhead sellers. For now, this is in value. There is another VPOC that lurks higher, but at first things first, you got to get like out
Exactly.
of the value area for the month. And right now we're like right smack in the middle.
Yep.
We can continue to bring up some of these questions. There's also a question that we've gotten about financials, which are not seem to not be participating in the of some of the areas of strength that I mentioned so far. The renewable energy, clean energy stocks went crazy today. Healthcare stocks have been going crazy the last 2 days. What's going on with financials? And I don't have the answer to that. I don't know if it's uh, government shutdown. Apple shelves headset revamped to prioritize Meta-like AI glasses. Sorry, just a headline on Bloomberg. But certainly this is just, it seems to be taking a rest right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's uncertainty about like what interest rates are going to do. Government shutdown, interest rates are going to go up, right? But are we going to cut? And what if we don't get data anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, just give it a little time. It's best not
Yeah.
to overreact.
Yeah, so I don't see like any like KBE, which is your banking index. This did open up, and it does say high volatility. We are below the value area, so there's a VPOC that's lurking lower here. Like, that would be a place for me to maybe look for a trade here,
Yeah.
because this doesn't look like such a great thing here. There is the support. I've got moving averages in here. I use the 50-day moving average quite a bit, so a little bit of support here. It's also like on resting on, or found some support also at the top of the value area for September. But overall, like, I think this is just how this market has been going too. It is not an everything go up market. It's
Right.
been kind of taking turns. And the financials have been strong at certain times this year, but it just seems like they're kind of taking a break right now.
Yeah.
The private equity companies, which I thought were showing some signs of life a couple of weeks ago, have just basically gone straight down. I don't have the fundamental reason for why this is happening. But I just know that, again, that's the beauty of like using the value areas. And, not only is it a break of the value area for the month of October below, it's also a break of the 200-day moving average. So for now, like, I kind of just shelve these things, and I kind of just, there's so many other areas of the market to look at.
Yeah.
When I see something that's not doing what I wanted it to do, by the way, VPOC takeout here, and
Yeah.
kind of the kiss of death there this over the last couple of weeks, but it's just not there right now. So what I do is, if I was overweight these things, I'd probably figure out which one maybe you want to take off in the short term and wait for them to regroup. But it all depends on your time frame.
Yeah.
These for whatever reason, the private equity companies, it could just be that they were on such a nice run in 2024, 2023, I think 2024, some of them.
Yeah.
It just seems like and this is what we see from time to time, is this consolidation. This APO had a great year in 2024, but yeah, it's below, when something's below the 200-day moving average, it's kind of just a no-no.
Mhm.
So that's all I've got. Like, so this breaking into the yearly value area. Again, we've got 2 more days to go left in the week, but
Yeah.
that's not a good sign. So, when the way that I kind of react to this stuff is just to say, okay, I'm not going to try a trade here. In fact, I'm going to just put this group to the side, because there are other areas that are just showing some really nice momentum to them.
Yeah, 100%. And this one, you'll see this little label in the lower left corner of the value area here, and that's telling you there's a potential 80% bearish rule setting up, but it's waiting for confirmation. So that confirmation won't come until, if we're still trading where we are right now next week, then it'll be confirmed and we'll be in the 80% bearish, which, that's a big range to fall down, worse than April of this year, which was obviously a sell-off across everything.
Yeah, and I do think, like, this year, and probably most years too, in general, like, hey, I like this group. I like the private equity group, but hey, it's just not there right now. And again, like, I got excited a couple weeks on these things because I thought that they were turning higher. And I actually showed all 4 of these names because it did look like, hey, I'm like, maybe the private equity companies are going to go higher, because I like the whole group, but I don't know why they stalled like this and put in a lower high. And it's just not a good look.
Yeah.
Here's CG too, which also looked like it was kind of gliding higher. There was rumors about this name that there was somebody was looking to acquire them some time ago. I think over the summertime. But look at this breakdown. So
Yeah.
again, something's just not right with this group, and the price action is telling you so.
Yep.
Again, sometimes it's better just to understand that they're just not in high demand right now. You don't need to know the fundamental reason. You just can see it in the price action.
Yeah. And when you see something like on this chart that you're looking at right now, right, volume is increasing as price is falling down. So the market is, not liking price, right, but getting involved as price falls. They're taking exits. So it's just another signal that there's a bearish market starting in this one.
Yeah. JP Morgan is still kind of just checking back here. That's another one that I would maybe keep an eye on. Always think like JP Morgan has like a pulse of like the overall economy. So this one's not breaking down. So I think, that's okay. Even this looked like for a while that this could be a head and shoulders. A lot of things can look like a head and shoulders, but they end up not being a head and shoulders and never really broke the neckline here. All right, moving back. So we covered AMBA. Planet Labs, which has been on fire. And again, some of these things I don't want to look at because I was in Planet Labs,
Yeah.
and I kind of just missed this. This thing took off like a rocket in the beginning of September. Look at the volume. This is on earnings, by the way. By the way, another example of, like, we're going to be hitting earnings season again in a couple weeks, but earnings can change around the whole personality of a stock.
Yeah.
A strong earnings report can make it a potential leader for the next quarter, and certainly PL has done that. So something really important to remember is that when a name has a bad quarter, it sometimes becomes dead money for the following quarter. When they miss, or they really undercut high expectations, they sometimes become dead money for the quarter. But on the flip side, when a name does something like this, gaps up, sometimes it gaps up and goes, because especially when you're coming out of like a somewhat of a sideways range, because institutions are going to have to go out and start buying this name because they're just, maybe they weren't overly positioned in it. So I don't have anything to add. I think this is all-time highs for Planet Labs.
Yeah, which means that the value areas don't help. Now you have the Venom lines, but that's really all you have.
And anything, by the way, guys, like, just because in case we get another question, if any of your stocks, right, do something like this, well, first of all, congratulations. Breaking out is a damn good thing. but there's not going to be anything in the chart. Once you're at all-time highs, there's really not going to be anything in the chart that's going to give you a guide. You have to now rely on risk management, right? And you have to, and this goes along with not just a breakout name, but you have to have some type of risk management. There's nothing in the charts that are really going to tell you where to take a target, right? And you basically want to sit long as you can, right? But you want to have what's called a trailing stop, right? So in this sense, like, and this is 15% down. Like, this is where your support level is for the month. That's too far down. Maybe I would watch for like a break of the 5-day moving average. Notice how the price is just gravitating above here. You're also at what, Venom number 1, which is an extension away from the value area. So these become more like what, speed bumps, Webb?
Exactly, speed bumps, and a good measurement of just how far away we are. Like, is this move extended, etc. So at the first Venom, that don't worry about it, you're fine. But if you switch over to the weekly candlestick chart, we're at the last Venom. Talk about extended.
Yeah, this has been a nice move. This is a $3 stock this year.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
April, it was $3.
yeah.
So 13. Yes, it is pretty extended here in the short term. But yeah, I would say if this name closes below the 5-day moving average, right, that's your place to, with anything breaking out and that's trending like this, use the 5-day moving average as your
Yeah,
area to see that, because the 5-day moving average is great to tell you short-term momentum.
yeah.
Right? If it breaks that short-term momentum, then you might have just a short-term like profit taking, maybe change in trend. So that's PL. Couple more. We'll do these kind of quicker because I want to make sure we catch everybody's symbols request. I mean, I saw this chart earlier. Again, a series of VPOCs being taken out. It took out this last one, and then it kind of came in here a little bit, but had a heck of a day today. You could trade this versus 3077. That would be, and it's nice to see that all these are taken out, and you don't have another one up here. So all the way up at 47.
Yep.
Apps. You want to take this one, Webb?
Apps. Digital Turbine. Finally, yeah, getting a bid above value for the year, above value for the month. There's a yearly VPOC up at 916 is what I'm seeing. Yeah, overall strong, a nice recovery in this one. Just trying to see if I see anything else on the chart. Mostly just VPOCs. There's a lot of overhead supply here, so it's one of those. Just be tight with those stops if you're long it. But yeah, the strength is there. The sentiment is strong.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see. Yeah, this was the last time there's a VPOC on the. I'm on the 1 hour time frame, by the way,
Yeah.
guys. There is a VPOC up here at 733, which could be your next barrier of profit taking. What else we got here? SYM and then ALB, and I think that's it. And then we'll take a final round. And but we like to kind of go through these, like, we have no plan, other than we wanted to cover. I do have like one more group of stocks I could go through really quickly, but here's SYM, and we'll start with the daily chart for this one. Now this is one. It's a robotics name. Their earnings did not impress me, so I haven't really looked at the stock since. Again, there's so many names that we look at on a day-to-day basis in the trading room that I have my own parameters for kind of weeding out names. I think this name is acting pretty good considering that it didn't have great earnings. So I would watch this 55.36 level. And yeah, we'll kind of see what it can do. It is trading above that value area for the month and for the year at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Even on that earnings sell-off, it did find support right at the top of the value area.
Yep.
You're up, Webb. ALB.
Oof. Below value for the year is something to be cautious about, although obviously it's trying to get up there. We're inside of value for October, so we're just kind of floundering, just a lot of question marks at the moment. However, if we can test it, which we did, you're on a daily chart, right? Okay, good.
Yeah.
2 days ago, we tested the bottom of the value, so that's good. And if we can try that again and get into value for the year, then the 80% rule triggers. You have that VPOC. So don't feel like you need to get it as soon as it breaks into value, right? You've got the VPOC very close to the bottom of value. Wait till it takes that out. Then it'll probably come back down to the bottom of value. Then you can just set your buy order at the bottom of value, and then you're in it long. You have your stop below value, and then you're in it long for 80% rule to the upside. But yeah, so bearish right now, but it's certainly worth keeping an eye on, getting on that watch list, and looking for the bullish sentiment to finally take hold.
Gotcha. So Sherry just came in with one quick one more symbol, and then we will look at this one. Yeah, this one kind of this is not my favorite in the nuclear space, but and by the way, perfect VPOC takeout here and kind of
Yeah,
stalled right there. So I tend to, so it's in value. It does have some support at 34.45, which I would be paying attention to. It also mentions this is a high volatility setup as well, but I would wait until it kind of breaks this value area to see if it makes a big move.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And it, anything can happen, etc. But tends to, when high volatility is highlighted, it doesn't often stay inside of range. The value area becomes less significant when it becomes significantly narrow.
Yeah, that resistance level to watch is 40.88 for a break higher. I'm just gonna we'll go through just a couple more things here, but I just wanted to remind everybody that we are running a special fourth quarter special, so you can trade with us for the rest of the year for a price of three for the price of one. So 3 month price or 3 month. I'm sorry, I continue to say this incorrectly. Webb, please
Oh no!
tell, please like
What are you
virtually
promising
slap
people?
me. It's you're getting 3 months for the price of one. I think I for
Exactly,
some reason I said this backwards. So
exactly. And
you're
that's,
only yep.
I was just going to highlight, and that's 3 months of the TTG room and 3 months of MarketWebs for the combined price of 1 month for both.
Yes, exactly. Which is and by the way, like I think that that's the appropriate time. Like if you're going to try using the system
Yeah,
and volume at price, and reminder, like all of these things are set automatically, right? There's no with like I know with anchored VWAP, which uses the same kind of the same concept of volume at price. You're always forced to kind of make some judgment about where you're going to anchor to. This there's none of that, right? The value areas are what they are for depending on what time frame you're trading on, and I use them in conjunction. Like I'm mainly a swing trader, so I will use the daily chart and the 1 hour. I'll also use the weekly chart for the bigger picture, but I'm mainly going back and forth between the daily chart and the 1 hour. And that gives me a sense of where there's some short-term resistance as well as some like medium-term resistance support as well, for trade entries. So I think 3 months is the appropriate time to like give something a try. Like you don't want to like try a system for like a week and whatever it is and
yeah,
say, oh geez, this is kind of tough. But you have us to kind of walk you through some of the different nuances that we're talking about, 80% rule and VPOCs that you may not be familiar with. I was just going to go over what I thought is just so damn interesting to me is just what I mentioned. I would go through a trade that I got into today
hmm,
and how I'm kind of thinking about that trade. So this is pure storage. I decided I'm very much like a relative strength person. I stick with where I see really a lot of strength in the market. And we know that things like any storage companies or memory chip company, Western Digital had a huge day today. Others, what are some of the other storage names that I'm thinking of? But I know, like, just to kind of go through these charts is pretty tremendous.
yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
SDX is another one that's super
Yes,
great. Or
yes.
Sandisk.
STX,
Yeah,
SanDisk is another one, but just also looking at some of the names that are involved in storage are doing really well. So Pure Storage is one of those names that had big earnings gap, and then I tend to either if I don't get involved in the name right away on the little bit of a check back and then the run, I generally try to wait for a little bit of support. Now I don't think. Well, I should say I don't think because I don't know, but check back to the top of the value area would be nice, but I don't know if we're going to get there.
yeah,
I'm using the moving averages and the kind of the crunch between the 20 and the 5 day to get long this. And what I'll do is I'll take some profits here at the top of the value area. And then it's kind of a wait and see to see if we can get through the resistance. But I like the trend. I certainly like the candle for the day. That up five or now 3.5%. I think it was closer to 5% when I got in the trade because I'm already made some money on the trade. But that's where I would be looking to take some profits, and then we'll kind of see if it can break through. But that's my one new trade for the day. I know that a couple of traders have pointed out this name too. This is AMPX, and similarly, this has a move 1216 is the level to watch here.
Very nice.
Last two symbols, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. You want to take AG, and
that's silver.
That's silver.
First Majestic Silver Corp. Again, bullish on the year and the month. We took out that VPOC. We have a VPOC up ahead, so things could start to settle down here. Just looking to that it stays above value for October. And if it starts to break, if you're already long because you're asking about the name, having a stop inside of value is a good idea there. That's going to be the 1158 level. But it looks like 1342 is that VPOC up ahead, and we could take that out.
And then WPM.
Oh, more precious metals. Cool. Same story here, but less overhead resistance. So in general, I tend to like these names better when there's no VPOC up ahead, right? There's less of that overhead supply that I need to concern myself with. And today, making it a new high on the chart. So like that as well. So between the two, I think that this one looks a bit stronger. The value area is not highlighted as high volatility expected. However, it is a bit tighter as well. So that's also a good sign.
Yeah, these things have been on such a run. Like even you could use this, like if you feel like, hey, I don't want to get involved in this name, it's a little bit extended. Maybe wait for that check back to the top of the value area, which is about 2.6% down. And the gold and the silver, but even though they've been running like crazy, believe it or not, gold miners were your best performing group. Which I tweeted out last night. They were your best performing group in September. I think they were up something like 24-25% for the month of September. I mean, that is incredible. Like to see gold miners doing something like that. And I don't know what silver miners were because I don't track that one, but I'm sure they weren't far behind. But yeah, I mean, some of these things they've just been running and running and running. But the checkbacks, notice that could also be like a check back to the 20-day moving average. That would also be something to watch too. Any final thoughts there, Webb, as we kick off the month of October with one heck of a day?
I mean, I think we've talked about this before in previous webinars like this, but I think you put fundamentals aside and be with the trend and don't fight it, but be ready and like create your system. Like you've been talking about some good ideas for how to like protect your profits. Looking at the 5-day moving average is a measurement of short-term momentum and stuff like that. I think you just gotta take your shot. If you feel like, have I missed the move? If you see a chart that you like for any reason, it could be any reason you like it, but you feel like maybe you missed the move, take a tiny little position in it. Then it's on your list. Then you've got your eyes on it, right? Like if you don't take a position at all, you take your eyes off of it and suddenly you've missed even more of the move. But if you're in it a little bit, then at least you're there, right? So I guess that's my big takeaway is the market's doing funny things on this day, the first day of government shutdown, and rallies across the board. You just try not to fight it, and but be ready if things change direction. That's all.
Yeah, none of us have the answers to how many more, like what kind of last quarter that we're going to get. I mean, I think one of the observations that I've been making over the last couple of months is the dips have been pretty shallow, and when we see dips when they're so shallow like this, it tells me that for whatever reason that there are still people who want to get involved in this market. And again, I don't understand it, but it doesn't matter. They may have been too negative back in May and June, and now they're just like, anytime the market dips a little bit, they're like, hey, I got to get involved in this market. Now, I don't know how long that's going to last for, but we have our levels to watch. And one of the things that I generally quote, when we start the week is like, hey, I'm going to watch to see, let's see what we're doing versus support levels, if we're going to violate any support levels or not. And we just, we continue to kind of quote these things. But we've had checkbacks. The 1 hour value areas are great for that, looking at the indices, where we've kind of like, even last week, just a little bit of a dip into the value area, and just didn't go that far. We've had several checkbacks too. I know it's tough to see these older value areas, but we've had a lot of checkbacks, but you're just not seeing any breakdowns yet. So, continue to monitor and watch for something to change. Again, you don't have to, you don't need to make a list all the time of like all the things that could go wrong in the market, right? But you do want to be aware of when we do break a key support level and things begin to change. So we'll leave it there, guys. Webb, thanks so much for coming on, as usual, for the beginning of the month. We like to do this every month when we've got new value areas and levels to pay attention to.